We already have some big-time matchups tonight at the Champions Classic between it's the Champions Classic, right? State Farm Championship. I'm sure it's branded, but it's the Champions Classic at MSG. Michigan State facing off with Kentucky, Kansas, and Duke. And so I was looking at these games, and I felt like I saw these lines. I was like, that's not what I thought the line would be. So let's start with this Michigan State and Kentucky game. Kentucky laying 5.5. I think this is down to 4 in some spots. But at BetMGM, I think it's still 5.5. So let me ask you, PJ, did you think this line was steep here? Think it's a lot of points for Michigan State to get in this matchup? Or am I on the wrong side here?
Yeah, I thought, especially with the line movement, it opened up about 5.5, 6.5, and like you said, it's kind of moving down. Looks like it's back at 5.5 now on BetMGM, but it's minus 102 to Kentucky. So the line is moving more so towards 5, 4.5. It feels about right. The big thing I want to see with Kentucky, and we'll see if their big man, Jaden Quintons, plays tonight, the transfer from Arizona State. The reason why so many people like Kentucky this year is because their defense on paper was supposed to be much improved. They went and got Mo Diabate from Alabama, and they went and got Denzel Aberdeen from Florida, Quaintons, who I just mentioned. They have some stud defensive players, but my big takeaway from that Kentucky-Louisville game is it just feels like it's the same Kentucky defense, and that's why coaching is so important in college basketball, because you can have great individual defenders, but if your coach just isn't a good defensive coach, it's going to be tough for them to reach their potential or how they were playing at their other stops. And I just kind of think that's what Mark Pope is. He's a terrific offensive coach, and Kentucky's going to be an awesome offensive team this year. But I have real questions about their defense. And when you get in a game like this, when you're going up against the Tom Izzo team, where it's going to be a war, it's going to be physical, you're going to battle on defense, they're going to have to battle on the glass and rebounding, it's going to be a tough game. And in games like this, where tonight it's at Madison Square Garden, and it's a neutral site game, and in these type of early season matchups, in these type of high-profile games, you tend to lean towards the under, right? Because it's just like different shooting sites. You're in an NBA arena. It's neutral. So all these different factors tends to lean towards the under. And if we're going to get an under type game, and I'm getting on paper probably the better defensive team, the better coach team, the better rebounding type team, then I would lean towards Michigan State. Michigan State wants an under type of game. Kentucky wants a game in the 90s on hundreds. Michigan State wants a game in the 70s. So because the total is at 153.5, the Kentucky-Louisville total, Chelsea, we were talking about that game last week, that total was in the 170s, right? So this total, we're getting in the 150s, 153. That, to me, is telling me that odds makers, bettors, they tend to see this as more of a Michigan State type game. The fact that it's neutral site, I like that more for Michigan State. So I think Sparty's probably the play for me in this game. I like them plus 5.5. I think they're alive in the game as well. So yeah, I would look at Michigan State plus the points against Kentucky tonight.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I feel like it's a tough matchup for Kentucky just because, like you mentioned, it's kind of a clash of styles where Kentucky wants to run and gun, Michigan State wants to play in the half court, and we've already kind of seen not exactly like a template game, but Michigan State has played somebody kind of similar in Arkansas. They won that game 69-66. 66. Should be noted that it was a home game for Michigan State, but I will say, Kentucky is like a better version of Arkansas, where Arkansas has a few guys that are extremely athletic. Kentucky has a whole roster of guys who are just extremely athletic. And here's the thing, if Michigan State can hit I don't know, a couple threes, because this has been the problem for Michigan State so far this season. They're ranked 352nd in 3-point percentage, but again, it's only been 3 games into the season. So you would think that there would be some reversion back to the mean. And obviously that will help, their game inside out, because so far it's been a team that certainly can crash the boards with Jackson Kohler. So I think that Kentucky is going to have their hands full down low, because this is a good team as far as post players go. But 5.5, I don't know. Seems like too many points. But again, PJ, I feel like we both liked Kentucky. Who was it? Was it Louisville getting 5.5 against Kentucky? So I don't know.
Yeah, Kentucky was getting a lot of points in that game. Louisville was the right side the whole time. And again, I thought the Kentucky defense would be better in that game. I wasn't impressed with what I saw. So I think they're going to struggle again tonight against Michigan State. So I do like the Spartans. But for me, I think this is more of a game I want to watch to see what Michigan State looks like, because Izzo's team doesn't have a ton of NBA talent, but they got Tom Izzo, and he's still one of the best, and his teams are always well coached. And he, in this NIL era, it's like he's not trying to get the lottery pick. He's trying to get his kind of guys into the program, and that's what he's about. So, I think in a game like this, I think Michigan State, I think it's a good matchup for them against Kentucky. But another good litmus test for the Cats too, to see if their defense is much improved. Because ultimately, if they want to get to a Final Four, win a national championship, like a lot of people think they're capable of this season, they got to get much better on the defensive side of the floor.
Do you think coaching matters more this early in the season? Like, I almost feel like it's bookends, where it matters so much at the end of the year and at the first of the year, where you're trying to, figure out rotations. And even if the chemistry is not there, like, the coaching is where you figure out what works sooner in the season. Like, do you think there's something to that? Because if you look at the coaching matchup, nothing against Mark Pogue, but I do think that Coach Izzo looks like the better head coach in this matchup.
100%. No, it's a great point. For like you said, I mean, you got, so many different moving parts with your roster. You're trying to figure out rotations. You also don't have a lot of film on these other teams, so you have to adjust on the fly. You got to adjust at halftime and at all these TV timeouts and all these little things. So coaching, definitely a massive part of all this. And again, I mean, Izzo is still, we talk about him, how great he is in March, and this is going to feel like a tournament game tonight, with this being neutral site at Madison Square Garden. There's going to be great energy. Kentucky fans always travel well. I think it's the best fan base in college basketball. Michigan State should have a great turnout as well. So it's going to have a tournament feel to it. And again, we talk about it all the time. When you get to March, not many coaches you want more than Izzo. So another kind of reason to pull from like Michigan State in the game tonight.
Yeah, I think I'll be on that side. The other big one tonight, number 24 Kansas against number 4 Duke. And this line is pretty high. Duke laying 11.5. It's 10.5 in some spots. But I think what this line says is that Darren Peterson's probably not going to play for Kansas, because that's the big question mark. He is one of their best players. People have compared his game to Kobe Bryant. But that's a big hole and big shoes to fill, especially when you're going against a Duke team that feels very well-rounded. And it feels like they've been off to a really hot start. They have the Boozer brothers, who are going to be exceptionally skilled down low. So I understand why Duke is favored. But let me ask about this line, PJ. Do you think much, or do you like Duke here?
These type of games are always so fascinating to me, Chelsa, especially when it's this early on in the season. And you're right, Darren Peterson is a stud, terrific player. If the NBA draft was tomorrow, I think he'd be the number 1 pick. I think he's that good. But we don't know how valuable he is to the line, and we don't know how valuable he is to the spread. I think the market's telling you he's probably worth about 4 points, because this opened up about 7.5. Maybe they had an idea he wasn't going to play, so maybe if he was playing, this line would be closer to 6.5 or somewhere in that range. So maybe he's worth 5 points to the line. At least that's what they think. I always like betting into these types of games, though. And I love doing this with the NBA, too, where when a star player is out, people just assume that team is going to get rolled, but so many times you see the role players step up and guys fill the shoes, or you see the other team kind of play down the level of their competition a little bit, or it's oh, Darren Peterson's not playing tonight, so maybe this game isn't going to be as tough as we thought, those kind of things. So look, we just talked about the coaching in the first game. I mean, Bill Self is still really, really, really good. And he's going to have his guys ready, and I think they're going to have a good game plan without Peterson. 11.5 is a ton of points. Chelsea, Duke played Texas to kick off the season in Charlotte, and they were an 11.5-point favorite in that game. So now you're telling me Duke is the same, it's the same line without Darren Peterson against Kansas? I can't buy that. I just think this line is too high. So I think Duke wins the game, but I think there's such an overreaction to Peterson because of what a terrific player he is that people just think Kansas is going to suck without him and they're not going to be able to keep this within the number. I disagree. So I also like Kansas in the game. For me, like the fact that the Texas game is priced the same way that the Kansas game is, it would be Kansas or pass for me.
I think some of this is, maybe it's not because Kansas is a blue chip program as well, but I think people remember the Duke team from last year. Do you ever think this goes into college basketball numbers where it's like, okay, the books are going to put it a little bit higher because you have to pay a premium on some of these teams that people like the casual bettor knows is a good program? Like, again, Kansas is one of those programs too, but like Duke was so good last year and now they have the Boozer brothers. It just feels to me like it is a game that Duke should be favored, but maybe not by this many points.
Agreed. And to your point, even though, Kansas is a blue blood, they're one of the top programs in the sport, they haven't really been that way the last few years. They won a national championship about 3 years ago, but ever since that, they've kind of been like a 6 seed or they've been a 7 seed. Like they really haven't been in the national championship picture all that much. And again, without Peterson, people are kind of viewing that the same way. Like, oh, this is kind of a Kansas team that's going to be middle of the pack in the Big 12 versus Duke, who's a championship contender. But I think you're right, Chelsa, and it's a good point where people just think about the team last year. They think about the Boozer twins, and this Duke team is nowhere near what they were last year. They're good, but they're not nearly as good as that team. So, I think it's too many points. I'll be betting both games tonight so I can have action on both games and really lock in on these teams. And I think I'm riding with both dogs. I think I like Sparty and I like Kansas in this game against Duke.
I just saw where this tips off at 9 o'clock. What are we doing? Come on, man. I'll watch the first half because I do want to see Cameron Boozer play. Because, like, you read the articles on him and it just sounds like he is so skilled and technically sound, which makes sense, when your dad played in the NBA. So I'm excited to see him play. I'm excited to see what Duke has, but maybe it'll be a little closer than this line indicates.